Some missing person cases linger in the minds of the public, especially when it involves mysterious disappearances of famous celebrities or unsolved cases that are seemingly impossible to solve. Some of these famous missing person cases have thankfully been solved, while other well-known cases continue to baffle investigators. Number 5. The mysterious disappearance of ABBIE Hoffman, a 52-year-old political and social activist, occurred in 1974. And while his missing person case has been solved decades ago, it's still well known to many. Long before he would become famous for his Woodstock incident and go missing years later, ABBIE Hoffman describes his childhood in the 1940s as idyllic. But at school, he was known to get into trouble since he got into fights, played pranks, vandalized property at his school, and he was often found missing from school quite often due to being expelled. He would, however, graduate university with a BA in psychology in 1959, and the following year he met Sheila Karklin. Following this, ABBIE Hoffman would become a famous activist during Vietnam, gaining further fame and notoriety in 1969 after a Woodstock incident during which he gave a profanity-laced speech with a megaphone during a performance by famous rock band The Who. Hoffman then wrote a book entitled Steal This Book, and when he was arrested in New York City in 1971 for attempting to sell $36,000 worth of illicit goods, he mysteriously disappeared after jumping bail. He personally reported his own disappearance to the police, and it would be a further 7 years before his missing person case was famously solved. During this time, he underwent plastic surgery and appeared in upstate New York under a new name of Barry Freed. He was eventually tracked down by law enforcement, and he served a 1-year sentence before passing away by his own hand in 1989. Number 4. The famous disappearance of 18-year-old NATALEE Holloway made international headlines in 2005 after she mysteriously disappeared during a trip to the Caribbean. NATALEE had just graduated from Mountain Brook High School and was looking forward to attending the University of Alabama to study for a career in medicine. But before starting college, NATALEE and 124 fellow students traveled to Aruba for an unofficial 5-day graduation trip. During the trip, however, the students excessively partied to the point where the Holiday Inn where they were staying stated that they would not be welcomed back the next year. On one such occasion, NATALEE was visiting a bar and nightclub called Carlos's and Charlie's. What happened to NATALEE Holloway that night is unsolved. She left the club at around 1:30 a.m. in the company of a Dutch honors student named Joran Vandersloot and 2 brothers, Deepak and Satish Kalpoe. Sorry if those pronunciations were totally botched, but NATALEE was scheduled to board a flight home later that day, but she was never found at the airport. When her room at the Holiday Inn was checked, her passport and luggage were still there, but no sign of NATALEE could be found. Searches were conducted of the island and the waters surrounding it, but nobody was found, and the mysterious disappearance of NATALEE Holloway remained unsolved. Her parents flew to the island in the company of friends, and when they traveled to Vandersloot's home to question him, he initially denied knowing NATALEE at all, but he soon admitted that he and his friends drove her to the Arashi beach to look for sharks. He stated that they then dropped her off at the hotel at around 2 a.m., and as they drove off, she was approached by an unknown man wearing dark clothes, similar to those worn by security guards. Hundreds of people joined in the search to solve NATALEE's bizarre case, but to no avail, as her mysterious unsolved disappearance continued to baffle investigators. On the 5th of June, 2 security guards from a nearby hotel were detained, but they were soon released when it was found that they weren't involved in the missing person case. The Kalpoe brothers and Vandersloot changed their versions of the night's events on several occasions, and despite many suspects being questioned, NATALEE Holloway's body has never been found, and her famous missing person case has never been solved. Number 3. The unsolved mystery of Kimberly Ann Langwell, a 34-year-old woman who mysteriously disappeared in Beaumont, Texas, started on the 9th of July, 1999, and it's a famous case that still needs answering. On that day, Kimberly had just finished her shift at the Mobil oil refinery when she called her daughter to say that she needed to stop by her ex-boyfriend's place, and that she would not be missing for more than a few hours before returning home to take her out for dinner. The relationship between her and her ex had been a tumultuous one, but she had started seeing someone new. When Kimberly hadn't returned home as planned, her new boyfriend followed the route that she would have taken to her ex's house, and along the way, he found her silver 1994 Nissan Altima abandoned in the parking lot of Eckerd's drugstore. It was discovered that her purse and keys were missing, but her cell phone was still in the car, as was her makeup. Her strange case seemed one step closer to getting solved when it was revealed that Kimberly had been so afraid of her ex that she once told her sister where her final remains might be found if she should ever go missing. Searches were carried out in the area where her car was located, but no further clues were found to explain Kimberly's mysterious disappearance. Many people suspect foul play, further speculating that the missing person might be found in one of the many abandoned wells in the Beaumont area. Decades later, Kimberly's famous missing person case still remains unsolved. She is described as standing 5'3" to 5'6" and weighing 130 pounds. She has blonde hair and blue eyes and can be identified by a scar under her chin and a birthmark on her lower back. On the day she vanished without a trace, she was wearing a white t-shirt with the word Cozumel printed on the front, with blue jeans and white sneakers. If you have any missing information from Kimberly's unsolved case that could help, you're asked to contact the Beaumont Police Department at 409-880-3830. Kimberly's nameless case number is MP966. Number 2. The strange disappearances of Tom and Eileen Lonergan began when they went missing off the Australian coast in January of 1998, while they were on a scuba diving trip. 33-year-old Tom and 28-year-old Eileen were members of the Peace Corps in Fiji, and they were on their way home after a year of service. They decided to visit the Australia's Great Barrier Reef before they went missing. Eileen was a keen scuba diver, and she had passed her passion for the hobby on to Tim. And so on the 25th of January of that year, they were part of a group of 26 passengers aboard a scuba boat owned by the Outer Edge Diving Company. They traveled 25 miles off the coast of Queensland, where they adorned their diving gear and entered the water to explore. But that was the last sighting of the couple before they mysteriously disappeared. It wouldn't be until 2 days later that the crew would realize the couple was missing, when a bag containing some of their possessions, their passports, and wallet was found on board. It would then come to light that the diving boat had departed from the diving spot without checking for missing people, and Tom and Eileen had been abandoned 25 miles from shore. A 3-day search was conducted via air and sea, but all that was found was their diving equipment that had washed ashore. Among the equipment was a slate that was used to write messages underwater. They had managed to write a message that read, quote, "To anyone who can help us, we've been abandoned on the reef. 25 January 1998, 3 p.m. Please help us, come to rescue us, help." The Outer Edge Diving Company pled guilty to negligence and was ordered to pay a fine for their role in the missing person cases, eventually leading to the company's closure. Tom and Eileen's disappearance also resulted in stricter safety regulations during scuba diving trips, including head counts being made mandatory. In 2003, a movie titled Open Water, which is based on Tom and Eileen's famous missing person case, was released. And due to the unique circumstances surrounding their unsolved case, many theories have been suggested as to what happened to the couple. Some believe that they were eventually attacked by sharks, while others suggest that they intentionally disappeared, though no evidence was ever found to support either of these theories. Number 1. The mysterious disappearance of 28-year-old Peter Falconio became a famous missing person case as it occurred in July of 2004, just over a decade after another famous case known as the Backpacker Murders that occurred in New South Wales and Australia. At the time, Peter was in a relationship with Joanne Lees, and on the 15th of November 2000, they set out on a trip during which they planned to visit Nepal, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Australia. Their trip went well, and on the 16th of January 2001, they arrived in Sydney, Australia for the last leg. On the 25th of June, they set out to visit Canberra, Melbourne, Adelaide, Darwin, and Brisbane. As they drove along the Stuart Highway towards the Devil's Marbles, they were flagged down by a motorist who was driving a Toyota Land Cruiser. The man informed Peter that he had seen sparks coming from the exhaust pipe, and the two men walked to the back of the vehicle, while Joanne moved over to the driver's seat in order to rev the engine. But just before she was instructed to do so, she heard a loud bang, and in the next moment, the motorist was at her window, brandishing a firearm. The man climbed into the vehicle and tied Joanne's hands behind her back, but when he attempted to move her to his car, she managed to flee into the nearby bushes. The man searched for her, but when he couldn't locate her, he left the area, and Joanne managed to flag down a road train driver who took her to Barrow Creek. By 7 a.m., the search was underway for Peter and the motorist, but the missing people were never found. CCTV security footage was released of the suspect, but this did little to progress the famous missing person case. Investigators compiled a list of people who owned a 1991 to 1999 model Toyota Land Cruiser, and Bradley John Murdoch was identified as a suspect in the mysterious disappearance. Murdoch's brother supplied a DNA sample, which further implicated Murdoch in the missing person case, and he fled, only to be arrested on the 22nd of August 2002. Murdoch received a life sentence for ending Peter's life, but the location of his body still remains an unsolved case that baffles investigators. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.